stop. Did you feel that? That shift, the moment the choir comes in, is one of the most visceral reactions video game music has ever produced. It's been 28 years since Final Fantasy VII came out, and this theme still does something to people. It still makes your heart race, it still makes Sephiroth feel genuinely dangerous. But why? Today, we are going to answer that question. Not just as fans, but also as musicians. We're going to take One Winged Angel apart, layer by layer, and find out exactly what Nobuo Uematsu did to create what I believe is the greatest villain theme in the history of video games. Hey, I'm Emiliano Ejequinta, video game composer. Let's take a look together at Final Fantasy VII final boss theme, One Winged Angel. Before we even touch on One Winged Angel, let's ask a bigger question. What does a villain theme actually need to do? A hero's theme needs to make you feel hope, adventure, the sense that things will be okay. A villain theme needs to do the opposite. It needs to make you feel that things will not be okay, that the enemy in front of you is beyond your comprehension, that you are small. The best villain themes in history do this through a combination of three elements. 1. Unpredictability. The music can't behave the way you expect. The moment your brain finds a pattern and relaxes, you feel safe. A villain theme cannot let you feel safe. 2. Scale. The song has to be bigger than the hero's music. More voices, more layers, more weight. 3. Darkness that feels earned. Not just minor chords, those are cheap. Real darkness in music comes from harmonic tension that doesn't resolve, from a musical phrase that keeps pulling you forward with no release. One Winged Angel hits all the three, and it does it in ways that nobody had done in a video game before 1997. Let's look at how. The most immediately striking thing about One Winged Angel is the choir, specifically the fact that it sings in Latin. Estuans interius ira viventi, burning inside with violent anger. In 1997, no video game had ever done this. Vocal music in games was rare enough. Full choral arrangements with Latin text were completely unheard of. Uematsu essentially took a tool from medieval sacred music and dropped it into a JRPG final boss fight. Why Latin? There are a few reasons, and they are all brilliant. First, Latin is a dead language. Nobody speaks it natively. That gives it an automatic sense of the ancient, the ceremonial, the other. When you hear Latin, your brain registers something formal and timeless. The language of cathedrals, of rituals, of things bigger than everyday human experience. Second, the specific text Uematsu chose is adapted from a medieval poem, the Carmina Burana tradition. The lyrics describe a figure of burning anger, tossed by fate, hollow inside, consumed by vice. They are not generic villain lyrics, they are a psychological portrait of Sephiroth, someone who was once a hero, corrupted from within. Estuans interius ira vehementi, burning inside with violent anger. Sos imanis et inanis, fate, monstrous and empty. Veni, veni, venias, ne memori facias. Come, 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 don't let me die. Now here's something I have to share, because I only discovered this myself at a live concert. I was sitting in the audience, listening to a full performance of Carmina Burana, Orff's original setting of these medieval poems, and during the performance I pulled out my phone and I started translating the Latin lyrics as they were sung. And then I found something completely weird. These texts in the original context are not about a terrifying god villain. Estuans interius, the burning with violent anger, is the confession of a drunk man at a pub, losing control. Beni, beni, venias, ne memori facias. Come, come, don't let me die. It's a love poem addressed to a lover in medieval Latin. To die was an euphemism for something rather different. And Ave formosissima, gloriosa, generosa, The adjectives are grammatically feminine. Sephiroth is technically being addressed as a woman. What this tells us is almost certainly that Uematsu chose this text the way most composers approach foreign language text, by the sound and the feeling of the words, not with a deep study of the original context. He heard Estuan's Interius ira vehementi, and it felt like Sephiroth, burning, violent, uncontrolled. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. The music he wrote around those words makes them feel exactly as terrifying as he intended. But there's something almost poetic about it. The most iconic villain theme in video game history is built partly on a dragsman's confession and a medieval love poem, and it works. That tells you something powerful about how music recontextualizes everything it touches. Those of you who played Crisis Core know this better than anyone. The game shows you exactly how he breaks. By the time One Winged Angel plays, you are not just hearing a villain theme, you are hearing the wreckage of someone who was once the greatest hero. As a composer, the lesson here is profound. The choice of vocal text is a compositional decision. Every word is part of the score. Before we dig into the harmony, let's talk about something crucial. One Winged Angel does not behave like a normal piece of music. It doesn't sit in a clear key. It doesn't move through traditional chord progressions. There aren't really functional cadences, moments where harmonic tension builds and then results. It's a piece composed almost entirely of dissonance, with a brief tonal islands that flicker by and dissolve. And there's a reason for that, a direct one. We have a quote from Uematsu about how he wrote this track, and the method is unlike anything else in his catalog. In interviews, Uematsu has said One Winged Angel is the only track he has ever composed using what he calls a puzzle piece, or a fantasia form approach. Quoting him, "Every morning I would go to work and think about Sephiroth and write something, about 3 or 4 musical phrases, and then I would call it a day." He did this for 2 to 3 weeks, 3 or 4 short musical phrases per day. No overall plan, no through composed development. Then, at the end, he assembled those fragments together, like puzzle pieces, into the final track. This explains everything about why One Winged Angel sounds the way it sounds. It's not a piece with a stable key center because it was never composed from one. It's not a piece with progressions because it was never built as a continuous harmonic argument. It's a mosaic of dissonant fragments, stitched together to create a piece that feels overwhelming precisely because it doesn't behave like music normally does. With that in mind, let's break the harmonic content in 2 parts: the Sinfonia, the long orchestral opening before the choir enters, and the choir section itself. The theme starts with a Sinfonia, and the Sinfonia is not the same as a symphony, even though they share the same root. In the Baroque era, think Bach's cantatas, a Sinfonia was the instrumental section that opens a larger vocal work. Purely orchestral, no voices yet, setting the stage for what's coming. A symphony, by contrast, is the whole multi-movement work itself. Mahler, Beethoven, the standalone orchestral form we know today. So when Uematsu gives us nearly 1.5 minutes of orchestral material before the choir enters, he's writing, consciously or not, exactly what Bach's Sinfonia does. Instrumental prologue, stage setting, anticipation. And given that this piece is essentially a secular cantata with Latin text, the term fits perfectly. Now, I'm not going to analyze the entire Sinfonia. It runs for, as I said, like 1.5 minutes of dense full orchestration which deserves its own deep dive. What I'm going to do is zoom in at the very beginning, on the opening, because that's where Uematsu puts his harmonic hand on the table. Everything else in the Sinfonia follows from this moment. Before I do, a quick map of the whole track so you know where we are. One Winged Angel has a clear, large-scale form. The Sinfonia runs from the top to about 1 minute 10 seconds, pure orchestra, no voices. Then the choir enters and we are in the chorale until around 2 minutes 10 seconds. From there to 3 minutes 20 seconds the choir drops back and the orchestra takes over again. I'm calling this the musical interlude. Then 3:20 to 4 minutes is the chorale climax, choir and orchestra at full force together. And then from the 4th minute and on, the whole thing repeats starting from the chorale. No second sinfonia, just the vocal section cycling through again with added weight. And this is the moment I promised you in the thumbnail, the most evil chord in gaming music. So if you hear to the intro, you will hear the strings and also trombone and tuba playing, plus percussion. But which pitches are we hearing there? Are E, A, B flat, and D. So we have two things here to consider. The first one is we have DNA. That's a perfect fifth. Nothing special. Open, hollow, primal sound. But sitting on top of it, the E and the B flat. The interval is a tritone, 6 semitones, which is the most dissonant interval in Western music. Medieval theorists literally call this diabolus in musica, devil in music. So if we collect them all together again with the violin patch, we have so bar 1 of the piece, Uematsu has handed you the devil's interval, dressed up in an open fifth. That's the harmonic statement of the whole track in 3 seconds. The chord, by the way, is no accident. It mimics the spirit of Stravinsky's augur chord, the famous dissonant stab that opens augurs of spring, from the rite of spring. Now, Stravinsky's actual chord is denser than what Uematsu does here. It's a polychord stacking around 6 different pitches into one slab of dissonance. Uematsu's version is linear, just 4 pitches, but it carries the same character, same role. Not a chord that resolves, but a chord that announces. Now, watch what happens next. The flutes enter with a tiny 3 notes motif, D, D sharp, and E. Three consecutive half steps, rising. The motif reaches up to E, but only barely, because while the flutes are reaching for E, the strings underneath are simultaneously destabilizing E. It works like as a pickup for what's going on the strings. There are 3 things happening in the strings at the same time. One voice holds E, kind of as a pedal, anchoring it. A second voice oscillates between B flat and A. So the third violin here is playing E flat, E, F, E, E flat, E. You can see Uematsu here is just surrounding with chromatic neighbors the pitch E. So it sounds like this. Very interesting ostinato. Now everything together, including the flute and the other 2 violin sounds. If you add up the pitch fill around E in the first few seconds of the track, E flat, E, F, D, B sharp, A, B flat, that's nearly every chromatic neighbor of E plus a tritone sitting on top. So here's the thing, this is not in a key, it's not E minor, it's not E fusion. It's not any clean mode. The opening is what music theorists call pitch-centric. E here is the anchor, but it's being attacked from every direction. Half step above, half step below, whole step below, tritone across, tritone collapse into fourth. It's the harmonic equivalent of being surrounded. This is straight out Stravinsky and Bartók playbook. Pitch centricity, not tonality. E is a target, not E as a home. Before we hear the choir, listen to what Uematsu writes immediately before its entrance. This is the bridge between the symphony and the choir, and it shows exactly how this piece thinks. The meter shifts to 7/8, already Stravinsky signature, right? A regular grouping that keeps you off balance. Then a motif emerges, built from 2 cells, totaling 7 notes, exactly fitting this 7/8 bar. Kind of cell 1 we have D, A, B flat, cell 2 A flat, E flat, D flat. Let's hear it in the viola. So Uematsu sequences the whole figure, again, same intervallic shape, restarting from C, then again from F sharp. Here we have it on C and on F sharp. Let's listen to it again. Look at what those starting pitches are doing. D, C, F sharp. There's no traditional functional relationship between those. No key change you could point to. He's not modulating, he's sliding, moving the same shape across different pitch areas, driven by chromatic motion and motivic repetition. It's what we call a sequence. There's no chord progression underneath. This is the puzzle piece method made visible. There's no harmonic argument. There's just a shape, a motivic fingerprint moving through the pitch space. The bridge ends on a soft sonority, B and C sharp together, a whole step apart. Minor in flavor, but gentle. After so much dissonance, this is kind of the closer we're getting to some tonality. We can observe here. And, you know, we would expect this C sharp to be the leading tone to D. So it does. After this measure we start on D, but this is not a cadence in a classical way. It's more like kind of a preparing by tension resolution the movement into the next section. So this is the closest we have to a cadence in the whole piece. We'll hear it entirely. Cool. And then we are ready for the choir. After everything we just heard over a minute of chromatic saturation, a pitch fill designed to tag E from every direction, the choir lands somewhere surprisingly grounded. The tonal center is D minor, and the choir actually stays there. That's the contrast Uematsu built. The sinfonia is pitch-centric chaos. The choir is a D minor triad. Let's listen to a reproduction of the choir. So already the first 4 pitches are D, A, F, and A. So it's just a D minor triad, right? That's not a coincidence. It's a stylistic necessity. A pre-classical choir simply doesn't sing dissonance. That's not what choirs do in this tradition. If you go back to Orff, to sacred polyphony, to any choral writing before the modern era, the voices move in clean intervals. Minor is as dark as the idiom gets. So Uematsu choir had to be grounded in D minor. The neighboring tones, the A flat, B flat, D flat, are already pushing right to the edge of what this style permits. So any further and it stops sounding like a choir and starts sounding wrong in a different way. So if you observe, the choir has two phrases basically. There are two declamatory phrases, each stated and immediately repeated, chant-like, incantatory. And the score reveals something important. They are harmonically very different from each other. Astuans interius ira vehementi, the first phrase, is two voices moving in log parallel intervals, almost entirely on the D minor triad tones, D, F, and A. The voices pair as thirds and fifths, F plus A, D plus A, F plus D, which is the basic skeleton of D minor, stated plainly and repeatedly. So we see up here we have F and A, down there D and A, and we only have like neighboring tones, right? We move from A to G sharp, or up here we have the same. It's labeled as A flat, but it's an error, right? And then we have the C sharp here, from D to C sharp, from A to G sharp. Let's quickly see on the piano, again the dyads of the choir. We have on the left hand B and A, right hand F and A. It uses the neighbor tone G sharp, and then does this beautiful chord. Cool. Also the rhythm, it's quarter notes with this accent on the late notes, which drives the music forward. The chromatic neighbors are there, but they are precise and surgical. A flat replaces A for a single beat, one semitone below the fifth, squeezing it from underneath. B flat touches A from above. The C sharp graces D from below on the Sephiroth shout. Each intrusion lasts one beat, then the triad snaps back. This is the enga of the phrase, the burning direct power, and the harmony reflects it. It has a home, it knows where it is. The violence is in the attack on that home, not in its absence. Let's listen to it again, just to see. We have this ending with a lot of B and just an A grounding it. So it's the most rooted moment probably of the choir and also of the piece. Sols imanis, et in anis. The second phrase is where the D minor shape dissolves entirely. The parallel motion remains, but the pitches shift. D flat, F, C and E, D sharp and F sharp. 3 consecutive thirds, each a half step apart in the lower voice. F survives from D minor word, but it's the one constant. D and A are gone, no root, no fifth. The harmonic echo is pulled out from underneath. So on the piano, the second part of the choir, it has not a built stack of a chord like a D minor, but rather dyads repeating left and right hand. So we have C sharp and F, C and E, D sharp and F sharp. The right hand does the same. Let's hear to the choir reproduction. So the tritone D sharp and F sharp lands precisely on the word imanis, monstrous. I'm talking about this. It's the most dissonant interval of the phrase, and it's placed on the most charged word. Now, the contrast between the two phrases maps directly into the text. Burning with enga has D minor, a tonal home, however it's stabilized. Fate, monstrous, and empty has nothing. The harmony for in and is, which is empty, is generally harmonically empty. The D minor shape is gone. There is nowhere to stand. Now, if you think about it, the piece starts on E, while the choir settles into D minor. The choir's final word is exactly that, a very unison D, with some A pitches there. On the last Sephiroth, shout. The voices land on the tonic and stop. It's a descent from above, the tonic center of E, of the Symphonia. It is mimicking Sephiroth's decay. And here's why all of this matters psychologically. In traditional Western harmony, the tension resolves. Minor moves to major, dissonance moves to consonance, and that's the grammar for tonal music. Tension and release, tension and release. I think One Winged Angel refuses to breathe. But notice what I'm not saying. I'm not saying Uematsu's birth-expected resolutions, the way a composer might write an interrupted cadence to surprise you. There aren't really cadences at all. There aren't chord progressions to follow. There's nothing to resolve to, because there was never a functional progression to begin with. And that's the puzzle piece method at work. When you compose 3 or 4 phrases at a time with no overall plan, you're not building harmonic arcs, you're stacking moments of intensity. The piece doesn't deny a resolution, it precludes the very concept. The psychological effect on the listener is enormous. Your nervous system is wired to expect a musical resolution. When it doesn't come, when there isn't even a direction the music is supposed to resolve toward, you stay in a state of low-level tension. You can't relax. The music keeps you on edge through fundamental structure of its harmony. This is what I mean when I say darkness that is earned. It's not just minor chords, it's engineering a harmonic environment where resolution was never an option to begin with. As a composer, this is one of the most powerful tools you have, a piece that has nowhere to resolve to. Use it for your most powerful moments. One Winged Angel is 28 years old. And the harmony we just look at, the tritone in bar 1, the chromatic saturation, the choir hovering above its own tonal center, the final note refusing to land, none of that was accidental. Uematsu made choices that are fundamentally technically correct, and those choices are still working on listeners today. That's what great game music does. It doesn't just accompany the story, it becomes the story. In part 2, we're gonna go deeper. The insane PS1 engineering trick that created the choir sound itself. Also the Stravinsky and the Orff DNA hidden in the orchestration. And also the leitmotif that connects this track to the theme Uematsu had been hiding in the game for 40 hours before this moment, creating the climax we all know. If this breakdown resonated, subscribe, because part 2 is where it really gets interesting. I'm Emi Quinta, and see you there.